Joe Biden's interview with George Stephanopoulos was released tonight, and the internet has been reacting to it. And here's something that I don't say very often. I agree with the CNN guy.
So it's interesting, Ian. I actually think this might be the worst case scenario for Democrats, and I'll explain why. Biden wasn't so bad that it sort of the conventional wisdom is, okay, he has to go now, right? At the same time, I didn't think he was so good and convincing, particularly if you weren't already rooting for him, that you would say, okay, well, I buy it. You know, he just was sick and he was tired and everything is fine. So it's that middle ground. You know, when you're playing tennis, you either I want to be at the baseline or at the net. You never want to kind of be at the serving tee. I think that's kind of where Biden was. I think what you take from that interview, a lot of it is what you brought into that interview.
So I generally do agree with Chris, the person on the screen there that used to work for CNN, that this is kind of worst case scenario for the Biden campaign because Joe Biden wasn't so bad and he wasn't so great. He was kind of right in the middle. I would say I would not give him middle marks. The only way Joe Biden in this interview was just in the middle, and I'll show a clip here in a second, it's only if you judge him on a curve based on the worst debate performance in modern history, most people are saying, which happened just a few days ago. That's the only way. I would say maybe out of 10, the performance Joe Biden gave on this interview is maybe a 3.
Mr. President, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the debate. You and your team have said you had a bad night, but your friend Nancy Pelosi actually framed the question that I think is on the minds of millions of Americans. Was this a bad episode or the sign of a more serious condition?
It's a bad episode. No indication of any serious condition. I was exhausted.
So those are about the first 10 words that Joe Biden said during this interview. I don't even know what he said there. So he's 10 words in. He said it was a bad episode, then something. I'm going to play that again. I don't even know what he said there.
It's a bad episode. No indication of any serious condition. I was exhausted.
So he said, I think, something, 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 I was exhausted. And those like maybe little gaffes in words. Like if you watch interviews or you just talk to people in real life, people make little mistakes like that occasionally for sure. The issue with Joe Biden is now he had that debate performance. Like I just did it there. Had that debate performance. He's got to come out and be a little sharper than that. That was 10 words in.
Before the debate, spent 6 days in Camp David. Why wasn't that enough rest time, enough recovery time?
Because I was sick. I was feeling terrible. Matter of fact, the docs with me, I asked them if they did a COVID test because they're trying to figure out what's wrong. They did a test to see whether or not I had some infection, a virus. I didn't. They just had a really bad cold.
I know many others have already made this point online, but what does having a cold have to do with what happened on that debate stage last week for Joe Biden? I mean, cold, maybe he was like doing some sniffles or he was like blowing his nose. That would be justifiable. Not the lapses on the blank stare and the holding your mouth open, or like the comment of pausing. We finally beat Medicare. I don't know how you can justify that stuff away with a cold. I don't think people are believing it, but maybe some people are.
And did you ever watch the debate afterwards?
I don't think I did, no.
This is the clip I saw circulating the most on X. Joe Biden saying he doesn't think he watched the debate that happened only 8 days ago. Seems kind of strange. You probably would definitely know one way or the other. And much like him stumbling over the first 10 words of this interview with George Stephanopoulos, these are the things that everyone now, because of that debate performance, is going to be looking at under the microscope to ask themselves, can Joe Biden actually do this job? If he can't answer directly a question of, did you watch a debate that happened 8 days ago with a straight yes or no? If you say, I don't think I did, it's probably something that would have just been brushed away. If someone else said it, they basically take that for, you probably didn't watch it, whatever, let's move on. But now, because of that debate performance, people are going to be wondering, what do you mean you don't know? It just happened. Like, Joe Biden now, if he stays in the race, has given up a lot of the benefit of the doubt to just the general population, the general voter. Everything he says now in an interview, in a press conference, on a speech, is going to be scrutinized under the umbrella of, does he have the cognitive ability to be the U.S. president?
Well, what I want to get at is, what were you experiencing as you were going through the debate? Did you know how badly it was going?
Yeah, look, the whole way I prepared, nobody's fault, mine. Nobody's fault but mine. I prepared what I usually would do, sitting down, as I did come back with foreign leaders or the National Security Council, for explicit detail. And I realized about partway through that, you know, I get quoted, the New York Times had me down at 10 points before the debate, 9 now, or whatever the hell it is. The fact of the matter is that what I looked at is that he also lied 28 times. The way the debate ran, not my fault, no one else's fault. No one else's fault.
But it seemed like you were having trouble from the first question in.
So this is another example of this is a pretty poor answer actually by Joe Biden. He doesn't answer the question. George asked him, did you know how poorly it was going when you're on the debate stage? Joe Biden started talking about 3 or 4 different things not related to the question. And then George actually, I think unknowingly saves him by asking him another question. Joe Biden was basically, if you watch that clip again, kind of going into nowhere. He started talking about the New York Times polling incorrectly, by the way, the data, saying he was down by 10 before the debate. Now he's down by 9 after the debate. That's not true. The other thing he said, Trump was lying. The other thing he said, he was talking about his debate prep. So all 3 of those things have nothing to do with the original question. And it didn't look like Joe Biden knew how he was going to finish that thought. But then George comes in and saves him.
He also lied 28 times. The way the debate ran, not my fault, no one else's fault. No one else's fault.
But it seemed like you were having trouble from the first question in, even before he spoke.
Well, I just had a bad night.
So yeah, like I said, I don't think Joe Biden knew how he's going to finish that thought. That's my opinion. I mean, let me know in the comments if you disagree. But I think George kind of unknowingly came and saved him, because I don't think George came into this interview thinking he was just going to do a softball. It's actually a pretty legitimate interview by George Stephanopoulos.
By many accounts, as evidenced by video footage, observation, and interviews, Mr. Biden is not the same today as he was even when he took office 3.5 years ago. Similar reporting in the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal. Are you the same man today that you were when you took office 3.5 years ago?
In terms of successes, yes.
Now, Joe Biden actually answered that question pretty tactfully, saying, in terms of successes, yes. I mean, he doesn't just come out and say, I'm the exact same guy that I was in 2020, because if you look at the interviews from 2020, there's a difference.
Nobody making less than $400,000 will pay a penny more in tax under my proposal.
That's a promise.
That's a guarantee, a promise. I give you my word as a Biden. That's an absolute guarantee.
And you think it's a good idea to raise taxes when the economy is in dire straits?
Depending who you're raising them on. Look, if you're raising somebody who's making $1 billion a year, it's not a problem if they pay 39.6%, which everybody should pay, raise another $90 billion.
So 2020 Joe Biden looks pretty good. If that's the way he'd looked in 2024, I could see wanting to run him again. I could see most Democrats wanting to run him. Pretty good that interview. Seems to know the facts.
I also was the guy who put together a peace plan for the Middle East that may be coming to fruition. I was also the guy that expanded NATO. I was also the guy that grew the economy. All the individual things that were done were ideas I had or I fulfilled. I moved on. And so, for example, well, that was true then. What's Biden done lately? Today, announced 200,000 new jobs. We're moving in a direction that no one's ever taken on. I know you know this from the days in the government. I took on Big Pharma. I beat them. No one said I could beat them. I took on all the things we said we got done. We were told we couldn't get done. And part of it is what I said when I ran was I wanted to do 3 things. Restore some decency to the office, restore some support for the middle class instead of trickle-down economics built from the middle out and the bottom up, the way the wealthy still do fine, everyone does better, and unite the country.
So this is the last clip I'll bring up from the Joe and George interview. But in terms of this question, in terms of it being like a coherent thought, pretty good from Joe Biden at a beginning, middle, and end. Although the substance, the bringing up peace in the Middle East, that's clearly not happening right now. And his other point about making an economy that works for all, not just the trickle-down economics thing, that's like a Democratic liberal talking point. Under Joe Biden, the top 10% of Americans now own 93% of the stock market. Wealth inequality is just grown under Joe Biden. And to be honest, it grew under Trump and it grew under Obama as well. But that actually, of all the things he said in the interview, substance-wise, the thing that bothers me the most, Joe Biden did not do this. The wealthy have only gotten wealthier. It's a massive problem, not just in America, but the entire world. And people fight over ridiculous stuff. We got to fix this insane wealth gap. And by the way, if you thought this was like an anti-capitalist message, not at all. The world needs a middle class. America needs a middle class. Other developed countries, other developing countries need a middle class. It can't just be rich people and a bunch of workers just struggling. But besides that, I want to make one more quick aside here. In the coverage of ABC and even the coverage on CNN, like that debate, the point I made in one of my previous videos just following the debate, the media seems like for the first time in my life, my adult life at least, don't just seem like partisan hacks right now. They're actually doing a decent job, and they're actually reporting on many things that go against the interests, you would think at least, of the Democratic Party.
The president is talking to a lot of people, but he appears to be listening to a very tight circle.
A very tight circle, and administration officials I have spoken to said that very tight inner circle is telling them he can win, that he needs to keep going. This, of course, includes his wife, Jill, who they said is lashing out at those who want him to get out of the race.
In the last 10 days, the mainstream media, I think, has done more credible reporting than they've done in the last 15, 20 years, perhaps. Probably ever since Trump came into the race, everything was, Trump is brutal. If you like anything Trump says, you're a racist. Or COVID. If you don't agree with everything we say, you're a conspiracy theorist. Or like Russia scandals and all these things. If you don't think that Russia colluded in the election, you're a conspiracy theorist. All these things that the mainstream media kept pushing destroyed all their credibility. And the last 10 days, they actually seem to be somewhat fair. So interesting thing to happen out of the mainstream media, apparently having a sudden change of heart 10 days ago of just being like, maybe let's just tell the truth and then see what happens. I don't think many of their viewers like this. And I don't even blame the viewers. The mainstream media has cultivated an audience over 15, 20 years, whatever, a long time, of people that just want to hear the liberal point of view, the Democratic Party point of view. Here's a popular Twitter page, BrooklynDad_defined. This George Stephanopoulos interview feels like an ambush. The only thing he's asked President Biden 30 different ways is, don't you think you should withdraw from the race? Nothing else. That was BS, George. What do you expect he's going to ask? This is not going to be a normal interview about the economy or about even foreign policy. This is the thing on everybody's mind. Joe Biden right now is behind Kamala Harris right now in the betting markets for U.S. president in 2024. What do you think he's going to ask him? So, and I think I've seen a lot of this stuff of people upset with the CNN moderators of not fact-checking. Joy Behar on The View, mad at CNN for not live fact-checking, like CNN's supposed to debate Trump on behalf of Democrats. Ridiculous. The final point I want to make here is that I think based on that debate last week, it's going to be very difficult to sell Joe Biden, the American voter, the idea that he can do the job for the next 4.5 years. So you might think, why is there all this debate about should he drop out? Should he stay in? Why wouldn't they just make a decision right now? Vivek Ramaswamy has a theory that I think is interesting. I don't know if I fully agree with him.
This is the beginning of a process, Kaylee. There is no way Biden's able to go forward. With this type of rift with the main institution that's given him cover, the mainstream media, it is done. It's only a question of when. I think they're not in a rush to do it. The longer it goes between now and late August, the better it is for them, because whoever the new candidate is, they're going to have a honeymoon phase with the public. No doubt about it. It's like the feeling that somebody who's been a tortured prisoner might have with respect to the person who releases them. That's going to be their attitude towards whoever succeeds Joe Biden. They want the election to occur within that honeymoon period. So you're going to see these hoops that they jump through. I think it's going to be a steady decline. But at the end of the day, there's no path forward for Biden.
Now, this Vivek theory does go with the theory other people had about why they actually had this debate so early in the election season in the first place. It's so they give Joe Biden a chance to either do well or do poorly, and then give themselves time to switch him out. It's Vivek's honeymoon period theory, with so many people in the Democratic Party, Democratic donors, the mainstream media, questioning whether Joe Biden can actually do this for the next 4.5 years based on that debate performance. It seems a little strange to just be debating this kind of for 2 months. It seems like a decision should be made relatively quickly, whether it's going to be Joe Biden or somebody else. So I think at the very least, Vivek's theory is interesting, and that's why I wanted to bring it up, because, I mean, who knows? So with that said, thanks for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have a good day.